Welcome to Dreamweaver Tales. Get comfortable, close your eyes, and let my voice guide you into a world of peaceful dreams. You know that feeling when the air itself seems to hold its breath, when the world grows hushed and expectant, as if nature is preparing for something wonderful. That's how this afternoon feels as we find ourselves standing at the edge of an endless flower field, watching the sky gather its gray silver clouds like a soft blanket being pulled across the heavens. The field stretches before us in gentle rolling waves, a living quilt of colors that seems to pulse with quiet life. Wild poppies dot the landscape with their papery red petals, some fully open to catch the filtered light, others still folded like tiny sleeping faces. Between them, cornflowers raise their delicate blue heads, swaying on stems so slender they seem to dance even when the air is perfectly still. Daisies scatter throughout like scattered coins, their white petals bright against the green backdrop, while here and there, patches of lavender release their drowsy fragrance into the warm afternoon. The temperature sits at that perfect point where your skin feels neither warm nor cool, but simply content. It's the kind of warmth that seeps into your bones without weight, without pressure. Just a gentle presence that makes your shoulders relax without thinking about it. The air carries that particular heaviness that comes before summer rain, thick enough to feel substantial when you breathe it in, carrying with it the mingled sense of 1,000 different flowers and the rich, dark promise of earth ready to drink. Above us, the clouds have been building all afternoon, starting as wispy suggestions against the blue and slowly gathering substance and purpose. Now they form a canopy of pearl and charcoal, their edges soft and undefined, like watercolor paint still wet on paper. They're not the harsh, angular clouds of a storm, but rather the gentle, generous clouds of a summer shower. Rounded and full, moving with deliberate slowness across the sky, as if they too are savoring this moment before the rain begins. The first sign comes not as a sound, but as a shift in the air itself, a subtle change in the way the flower heads move, a barely perceptible stirring that makes the poppies turn their faces slightly upward. The lavender stalks bend just a fraction, as if leaning in to hear a whispered secret. Even the grass beneath our feet seems to rustle with anticipation, though there's no wind we can feel. Then, so softly we might have imagined it, comes the first gentle tap. A single raindrop lands on a broad daisy petal near your feet, sitting there like a perfect crystal bead, so clear you can see the white of the flower magnified within it. Another follows, this one finding the velvety red surface of a poppy, where it settles into the slight hollow of the petal with the tiniest whisper of sound. The drops are warm, you realize with surprise. Not the cool shock of spring rain, but the gentle warmth of water that has traveled through summer air, gathering heat from the sun, even through the clouds. When one lands on your outstretched hand, it feels like a small gift, a tiny pool of liquid warmth that sits on your skin for a moment, before slowly spreading, leaving behind just the faintest sensation of moisture and the memory of that brief, perfect temperature. More drops begin to fall now, still spaced apart, still individual and distinct, Each one seems to choose its landing place with care. One settles into the cup of a morning glory that has stayed open despite the afternoon hour. Another finds the broad leaf of a wild rose bush, where it joins with a previous drop to form a slightly larger pool that trembles with each new arrival, but somehow never spills over the leaf's edge. The sound begins to change as the drops find different surfaces. The soft plip of water meeting petal gives way to a gentle patting as drops begin to find the earth itself. The soil here is rich and dark, the kind that gardeners dream of, and it receives each raindrop with a barely audible whisper, a tiny sigh of satisfaction as the dry earth welcomes the moisture it has been quietly waiting for. You can smell it, beginning now, that distinctive scent that rises when warm rain first meets thirsty earth. It's not quite the sharp, metallic smell of rain on pavement, nor the green brightness of rain on grass. This is something deeper, richer. The smell of soil awakening, of roots stirring, of the field itself breathing in the moisture and exhaling contentment. The rhythm of the drops begins to quicken, though still gentle, still warm. What started as individual arrivals becomes a soft percussion, a natural drum beat played out across 1,000 flower faces and leaves. Some drops find the broad leaves of wild sunflowers that edge the field, creating tiny splash patterns that catch the diffused light filtering through the clouds. Others land on the narrow, sword-like leaves of iris plants, where they gather and slowly travel downward in meandering trails, following the natural channels of the leaves like tiny rivers, finding their way to the sea. The air grows thicker now, not oppressive, but embracing, filled with the moisture and warmth of the approaching shower. Each breath feels substantial, nourishing, carrying with it the intensified fragrances of the flowers around you. The lavender seems to release more of its drowsy perfume with each raindrop that touches it. The wild roses exhale their sweet breath more freely. Even the grass beneath your feet seems to smell greener, more alive, as if the approaching rain has awakened something sleeping in every blade and stem. Standing here in this field, feeling the warm drops beginning to fall with greater frequency, you become part of the rhythm. Your skin receives each drop like the petals around you, welcoming the gentle touch, the brief warmth, the way the water seems to dissolve so perfectly into the afternoon air that it never feels wet. Just right. Just exactly what this moment called for, what the field has been patiently waiting for, what your own tired spirit needed without knowing it. The poppies around you begin to glisten, their red petals taking on a deeper richness as the warm raindrops settle into their silky surfaces. Some of the flowers seem to nod more deeply, as if the weight of the accumulated drops is gently pulling their heads forward in gratitude. The cornflower's blue deepens to something approaching the color of twilight sky, their petals darkening as they drink in the moisture. You notice how the rain seems to bring out different aspects of each flower's character. The daisies remain bright and cheerful, their white petals somehow becoming even more luminous with the water droplets scattered across them like tiny lenses, catching and scattering light. The wild roses seem to exhale more deeply, their perfume growing stronger and sweeter as the warm rain releases oils from their petals that the dry air had kept locked away. The temperature of the air begins to shift slightly, the warmth of the rain mixing with the cooler air above, to create gentle currents that move through the field like slow, invisible rivers. These currents carry scents and sensations in lazy spirals. Here a breath of lavender, there the green smell of rain-wet leaves, everywhere the rich, living fragrance of earth, gratefully receiving water. As the drops continue to fall with increasing frequency, they begin to create their own small symphonies wherever they land. The broad leaves of the wild plants produce different notes than the delicate petals of the flowers. The earth itself seems to hum with quiet satisfaction as each drop soaks in, disappearing into the dark soil to join the vast network of moisture that feeds the roots, spreading invisibly beneath your feet. Looking up toward the soft gray canopy of clouds, you can see that this is just the beginning. The clouds hold the promise of more rain to come, not the sudden deluge of a storm, but the steady, gentle giving of a true summer shower. The kind of rain that falls for hours without urgency, without drama. Just a quiet, persistent generosity that feeds the earth and nourishes everything growing in it. The field seems to sense this promise too. There's something in the way the flowers hold themselves, a relaxation, a settling in for the gentle soaking to come. The leaves of the larger plants spread themselves more broadly, as if opening their arms to receive whatever the sky wants to give. Even the grass beneath your feet seems to soften, becoming more yielding, more welcoming, preparing to become a living carpet that will cushion the fall of countless more warm drops. And this is how it begins then, not with fanfare or sudden change, but with this gradual, gentle increase in the rhythm of drops, each one warm and perfectly timed, each one adding its small note to the growing symphony of summer rain on an endless field of flowers. The air grows richer, the scents deeper, the very atmosphere more substantial and nourishing with each passing moment. And you stand here in the midst of it all, feeling those first warm drops on your skin, breathing in the awakening fragrances, becoming part of this ancient and peaceful rhythm of sky and earth, of giving and receiving, of the gentle persistence of nature's most soothing gift. You find yourself naturally drawn deeper into this awakening world, your feet beginning to move of their own accord, along what might once have been a path, though now it's simply a slightly clearer channel through the magnificent chaos of summer blooms. Each step feels deliberate, yet effortless, as if the earth itself is guiding you forward into the heart of this flower-filled sanctuary. The rain continues its gentle persistence, and with each breath you take, the air seems to grow more perfumed, more alive with possibility. The grass beneath your bare feet is soft and slightly springy, still holding the warmth of the afternoon sun, even as the cooling rain begins to dampen its surface. You can feel the individual blades bending under your weight, and occasionally the velvet brush of a low-growing flower petal against your ankle. There's something deeply satisfying about this unhurried pace, this mindful placement of one foot and then the other, as if walking itself has become a form of meditation, a way of joining the rhythm that pulses through everything around you. As you move deeper into the meadow, the flowers seem to grow taller, more varied in their colors and forms. Here, a cluster of deep purple blooms with centers like tiny golden suns nods gently in the increasing breeze. There, a patch of coral-colored petals catches raindrops like precious gems, each one magnifying the subtle striations of color that paint each flower's face. The diversity is breathtaking, yet somehow perfectly harmonious, as if nature herself has been an artist at work here, painting with living color across this vast canvas of earth and sky. You pause for a moment, allowing yourself to truly see what surrounds you. The rain has begun to intensify just slightly, not enough to be uncomfortable, but sufficient to create a gentle percussion against the thousands of flower faces that turn upward to receive it. The sound is unlike anything you might hear elsewhere, not the sharp tap of rain on roof tiles or the hollow drumming against windows, but something softer, more musical. It's as if each flower contributes its own small note to this organic symphony, creating layers of sound that seem to rise and fall with the natural contours of the land. Your fingers trail along the tops of flowers as you continue forward, and you're amazed by the variety of textures you encounter. Some petals are smooth as silk. Others have a slight roughness that speaks of their wild heritage. There are flowers with faces as broad as your palm, and others so delicate they seem almost transparent in the gentle rain. The stems vary too, some thick and sturdy, others gracefully slender, all of them reaching upward with an optimism that feels infectious. You find yourself smiling without quite knowing why, simply pleased to be here among these living celebrations of summer. The fragrance continues to evolve as you walk, revealing new layers and combinations with each shift of the rain-sweetened breeze. What began as a general floral perfume has become something far more complex and interesting. You catch hints of something like honey, then a note that reminds you of fresh herbs crushed gently between fingertips. There's an underlying earthiness too, rich and clean, speaking of soil that has been loved by countless seasons of rain and sun, growth and rest. The eternal cycle that makes such abundance possible. The path, such as it is, begins to curve gently to the right, and as you follow its meandering suggestion, you notice how the quality of light around you continues to shift. The storm clouds above create a natural filter, softening the late afternoon sun into something golden and diffuse. Everything seems to glow from within. The flowers, the grass, even the air itself appears to shimmer with a gentle luminescence that makes this ordinary meadow feel touched by something magical, something beyond the everyday world you left behind. Your clothing, you realize, has begun to absorb the rain in the most pleasant way. The fabric doesn't cling uncomfortably, but instead seems to breathe along with your skin, creating a sensation of coolness that perfectly balances the lingering warmth of the day. Each raindrop that touches your face feels like a small blessing, and you find yourself tilting your head back slightly, allowing the warm summer rain to wash over your cheeks and forehead with gentle insistence. The ground beneath your feet begins to change subtly as you continue deeper into the meadow. Here, the earth feels slightly softer, more yielding, as if this particular area holds moisture more readily than the higher ground you crossed earlier. Your footsteps make the faintest whisper of sound, a gentle compression and release that adds another quiet note to the growing chorus of rain and breeze and rustling flowers. You can feel how the soil here is rich and dark, full of the organic matter that makes such extraordinary blooming possible. Around you, the flowers seem to respond to the increasing rain with visible pleasure. Petals that had been closed or partially folded now open more fully, revealing hidden depths of color and pattern that had been concealed during the drier afternoon hours. You pause to observe a particularly magnificent bloom, perhaps a wild poppy or some cousin to garden flowers you've known, as it seems to unfurl in slow motion, its scarlet petals edged with the faintest hint of cream, its dark center revealed like a secret being shared. The air around you has become noticeably more humid, but in the most pleasant way imaginable. It's the kind of humidity that feels nourishing rather than oppressive, carrying with it all the rich scents and subtle sounds that make this meadow feel alive in every possible sense. You breathe deeply, feeling as if you could fill your lungs not just with air, but with the very essence of this place, the contentment of flowers and rain, the satisfaction of earth receiving water, the quiet joy of a world in perfect balance. As you continue your unhurried journey deeper into this floral landscape, you become aware of small sounds that speak of other life, sharing this space with you. The soft buzz of insects that have found shelter among the broader leaves, waiting out the rain in the drowsy contentment. The almost inaudible whisper of flower stems swaying in the growing breeze. Even what might be the distant call of a bird, though it's difficult to tell whether the sound comes from the meadow itself or the line of trees you can just make out at the far edge of your vision. Your pace slows even further, not from tiredness, but from a growing desire to absorb everything this place has to offer. Each step reveals new combinations of color and form, new partnerships between different types of blooms that have found ways to coexist and even complement each other in this wild garden. You notice how taller flowers provide gentle shelter for shorter ones, how different root systems must work together beneath the soil to share resources, how the entire meadow functions as a community of living things, each contributing to the beauty and health of the whole. The rain continues to intensify gradually, and you find this progression deeply satisfying, as if you're witnessing a perfectly choreographed dance between sky and earth. The drops are larger now, more substantial, and they create tiny splashing sounds as they land on the broader flower faces around you. The air fills with an almost musical quality, a gentle percussion that seems to encourage the flower to release even more of their fragrance, creating currents of scent that shift and flow with each movement of the rain-heavy breeze. You realize that you've been walking for some time now, though time itself seems to have taken on a different quality here in this flower-filled sanctuary, Minutes might have passed, or perhaps much longer. It doesn't seem to matter. What matters is this sense of being completely present, completely engaged with the beauty that surrounds you, completely at peace with the gentle rhythm of your own movement through this landscape that seems designed for exactly this kind of mindful, unhurried exploration. The path continues to curve and meander, and you're content to follow wherever it might lead, knowing that each turn will reveal new wonders, new combinations of color and fragrance and texture that speak to something deep within you, something that recognizes this place as exactly where you need to be, walking slowly through warm summer rain in a meadow where flowers bloom in wild profusion, and the air itself seems to shimmer with quiet contentment and the promise of even greater beauty ahead. The rain continues its gentle percussion against the flower petals all around you, creating a symphony of tiny impacts that seems to grow more intricate the deeper you move into this blooming sanctuary. Each droplet finds its own small target: the broad face of a sunflower, the delicate curve of a rose petal, the fuzzy surface of a lamb's ear leaf, and the collective sound becomes something like nature's own percussion ensemble, playing a rhythm that matches the unhurried pace of your steps along the winding path. As you walk, you begin to notice how the rain transforms each flower it touches. The white petals of nearby daisies have become translucent in places, taking on an almost pearl-like quality where the water clings to their surfaces. You pause for a moment to observe a cluster of purple cosmos, their papery petals catching droplets that magnify the delicate veining running through each bloom like tiny rivers of deeper color. The rain doesn't diminish their beauty. It reveals hidden dimensions of it, adding weight and substance to what might otherwise seem fragile. Your attention is drawn to a patch of nasturtiums sprawling across a small clearing just off the main path. Their round leaves, shaped like tiny lily pads, have become natural collectors for the falling rain. Each leaf holds a perfect pool of water at its center, the droplets gathering and growing until they reach a critical moment of fullness before spilling over the edges in miniature waterfalls that cascade onto the leaves below. The orange and yellow flowers seem to glow more vibrantly in the muted light, their trumpet shapes filled with collected rainwater that overflows in gentle streams. You find yourself stepping closer to this natural water garden, drawn by the mesmerizing sight of so many small pools forming and emptying in their own quiet rhythm. The ground beneath your feet is soft with fallen petals that have been gently loosened by the rain, a carpet of orange and yellow that releases a fresh, peppery fragrance with each step. The scent mingles with the rain-washed air, creating something clean and alive that fills your lungs with each breath. The rain itself has settled into a steady, comfortable pattern that feels more like a blessing than weather. Each drop is warm as it touches your skin, carrying with it the accumulated heat of the summer day that came before this gentle evening shower. Your clothes have grown comfortably damp, the fabric clinging lightly in a way that makes you more aware of the warm air moving around you. There's something deeply satisfying about being here in the rain, unhurried and unworried, simply present with the flowers and the falling water and the sweet, complex fragrances that rise from the wet earth. Moving on from the nasturtiums, you discover that the path ahead leads through a grove of hollyhocks that tower above you like gentle giants. Their tall stalks are studded with trumpet-shaped blooms in shades of pink and white and deep burgundy, each flower large enough that the rain creates distinct patterns as it strikes their surfaces. The sound changes here, becoming deeper and more resonant as the droplets hit these broader petals. Some flowers hang heavy with collected water, their blooms bowing gracefully under the weight, before releasing small cascades that patter onto the flowers below in a delicate chain reaction. You reach out to touch one of the burgundy blooms, feeling the velvet texture of its petals made even softer by the rain. The water has intensified its color, making it appear almost jewel-like in the gentle light filtering through the shower. As your fingers brush the flower, it releases some of its collected rainwater in a small stream that runs warm across your palm. The sensation is surprisingly pleasant, this sharing of the rain between flower and observer. A small moment of connection that feels both intimate and perfectly natural. The air around the hollyhocks carries a different quality of fragrance, something green and robust that speaks of strong roots and healthy growth. The large leaves create natural umbrellas at various heights, though the rain is gentle enough that seeking shelter feels unnecessary. Instead, you find yourself enjoying the way the water moves through this vertical garden, traveling from bloom to bloom in a choreography that has been perfected through countless summer showers. As you continue through the hollyhock grove, you begin to notice how the rain has awakened the earthworms. They emerge onto the path in lazy curves, their movements unhurried and purposeful. Their presence speaks to the health of this soil, rich and living beneath the carpet of flowers. The sight of them reminds you that this garden exists in layers, not just the obvious beauty of the blooms above, but the complex ecosystem below, where roots intertwine and beneficial creatures work to maintain the balance that makes such abundance possible. The path begins to slope gently downward, and you realize you're approaching a natural depression in the meadow where water has begun to collect in small, temporary pools. These ephemeral ponds mirror the gray sky above, their surfaces dimpled by the continuing rain in patterns that shift and change with hypnotic regularity. Flowers grow right up to the edges of these pools, forget-me-nots and violets that seems particularly suited to this damper ground, their small faces bright against the dark water. You find a comfortable spot on a small rise overlooking this temporary water garden, settling yourself among a patch of sweet alyssum, whose tiny white flowers release an honey-like fragrance intensified by the rain. From this vantage point, you can watch the interplay between water and earth and growing things, seeing how the landscape holds and channels the rain in ways both practical and beautiful. The pools will likely be gone by tomorrow, absorbed back into the earth or evaporated by the sun. But for now, they create perfect mirrors that double the visual impact of every flower that grows along their edges. The sound here is different again. The rain striking the water surface creates a lighter, more musical tone than when it hits the solid petals or leaves. It's like nature's own wind chimes, a melody that layers over the deeper rhythm of droplets hitting vegetation. Occasionally, a small splash indicates that some creature, perhaps a frog or toad, has entered one of the pools, adding another note to this impromptu composition. As you sit among the sweet alyssum, you become aware of how the rain has changed your own relationship with this flower field. The shower has created an atmosphere of intimacy, drawing everything closer together. Colors appear more saturated. Fragrances travel more readily through the humid air. And the boundaries between yourself and this blooming world seem more permeable. You're not just observing the garden, you're part of it, sharing in the same gentle baptism of warm summer rain that nourishes every petal and leaf around you. The light continues to shift as evening approaches, filtered through the rain clouds in a way that makes everything seem to glow from within. The white flowers, the alyssum beneath you, the cosmos in the distance, the hollyhock blooms you've left behind, appear almost luminous in this soft light. They seem to hold their own gentle radiance, accumulated from the day's sunshine and now released slowly as the rain settles around them, like a benediction. Time moves differently in this rain-soaked flower paradise. Minutes flow into one another like the water flowing from petal to petal, marked not by any urgency but by the gradual changes in light and the subtle shifts in the rain's intensity. Sometimes it strengthens slightly, drumming a bit more insistently against the broader leaves of the plants around you. Sometimes it gentles to little more than a mist that kisses your skin with the barest touch. But always, it continues. This summer shower that seems to exist outside of ordinary time, creating a pocket of serenity where the only important things are the warmth of the droplets, the perfume of rain-washed flowers, and the deep contentment that comes from being exactly where you belong, surrounded by beauty in its most natural and unguarded form. This perfect equilibrium of warmth and moisture creates something extraordinary in the air around you, a living atmosphere that seems to pulse with its own gentle rhythm. You notice how the light has changed, softening from the bright clarity of moments before into something more diffused, more golden. The sky above has deepened into layers of pewter and cream, clouds moving with unhurried purpose across the expanse, like great sailing ships navigating celestial waters. There's anticipation in this change, but not the sharp edge of anxiety, rather the pleasant expectation of a gift about to be unwrapped, a story about to unfold in its own time. The first sign that something more substantial approaches comes not through sight, but through scent. The air carries new fragrances now, richer and more complex than the sweet simplicity of the flowers alone. There's the green smell of wet earth preparing to receive more rain, the mineral tang of distant lightning, and something else, something that speaks of abundance and renewal. It's the scent of a summer storm gathering its strength, drawing moisture from far-off places to bring here, to this field, to you. As you breathe in these changing aromas, you become aware of subtle shifts in the sounds around you. The gentle pattering of the light rain continues, but now it's joined by whispers of wind moving through the flowers with new purpose. The tall stems begin to sway more noticeably, their movements creating soft susurrations as petals brush against petals. Leaves caress leaves. It's like listening to the field preparing itself, settling into a more comfortable position before welcoming what's to come. The temperature of the air itself seems to shift and flow in layers now. Cool currents drift past your skin, carrying with them the promise of heavier rain, while warm pockets still hold the sun's earlier gift of heat. These invisible rivers of air create a constantly changing sensation against your face and hands, sometimes cool enough to raise tiny bumps along your arms, other times so perfectly warm that you feel cradled by the atmosphere itself. Above, the clouds continue their slow dance of transformation. What began as wispy formations have gathered substance and weight, their edges still soft, but their centers growing deeper, more purposeful. The light filtering through them creates an ever-shifting palette of illumination across the flower field. Here, a patch of golden warmth, highlighting a cluster of yellow blooms. There, a cooler silver glow that makes the purple flowers seem to luminescence from within. You can feel the change in air pressure now, that subtle sensation that speaks to something deep in your body's memory. It's not uncomfortable, quite the opposite. There's something deeply satisfying about this shift, as if the very atmosphere is exhaling a long-held breath and preparing to inhale something new and nourishing. Your own breathing naturally adjusts to match this rhythm, becoming deeper and more measured as you settle further into harmony with your surroundings. The first drops of the heavier rain announce themselves with tiny, cool kisses against your forehead and cheeks. They're larger than the gentle mist that has been your companion, each droplet carrying more weight, more substance. When they land on your skin, they spread slightly before being absorbed or evaporating, leaving behind a sensation of freshness that seems to penetrate deeper than the surface. These herald drops fall, seemingly at random, one on your shoulder, another on the back of your hand, a third creating a tiny cool spot on your collarbone. Around you, the flowers respond to these new arrivals with visible pleasure. Petals that had begun to cup slightly in the gentler rain now open more fully, as if stretching to catch these more generous offerings. You can actually see some of the larger blooms move as drops land on them, their faces tilting and adjusting, like living creatures positioning themselves to receive a blessing. The leaves, too, seem to quiver with anticipation, their surfaces glistening with accumulated moisture that catches and scatters the filtered sunlight. The wind picks up slightly, not enough to be forceful, but with sufficient strength to create waves of movement through the flower field. These waves ripple outward from some invisible center, causing the blooms to bow and rise in graceful sequences. It's like watching a slow-motion dance performed by thousands of participants, each one perfectly in sync with the greater movement. while maintaining its own individual character. The sound this creates is indescribable, part whisper, part sigh, part gentle applause as countless petals and leaves touch and separate in endless combinations. As the moments pass, the drops come more frequently now, though still with spaces of anticipation between them. Each one that touches your skin brings its own small gift of coolness and freshness. Some land on your arms and trace tiny paths downward before disappearing into the fabric of your clothing or the warmth of your skin. Others find the curve of your neck or the bridge of your nose, creating fleeting sensations that are gone almost before you can fully appreciate them, leaving only a lingering awareness of their passage. The fragrance in the air intensifies with each new drop. Rain as a way of unlocking scents that remain hidden in dry air, and now the full perfume of the flower field begins to reveal itself in layers. The sweet honey scent of some blooms mingles with the green freshness of others. Somewhere nearby, there must be herbs among the flowers. You catch hints of something like wild mint or sweet grass, earthy and clean at the same time. Looking up through the gentle rainfall, you see how the sky has become a masterpiece of soft gradations. The clouds have thickened into a comfortable gray that speaks not of gloom, but of abundance held in reserve. There are still breaks here and there where warmer light filters through, creating shafts of illumination that move slowly across the landscape like gentle spotlights, highlighting first one section of flowers, then another. When these beams of light encounter the falling raindrops, they transform them into tiny prisms, each drop catching and fracturing the light into brief moments of rainbow shimmer. The rhythm of the rainfall has found its own music now, no longer the subtle whisper of the earlier mist, but not yet the steady drumbeat of a true downpour. Instead, it creates an irregular percussion against the various surfaces around you, different tones as drops strike broad leaves, narrow stems, the earth itself, or your own clothing and skin. This natural symphony has no conductor save the wind and the clouds, yet it maintains a harmony that speaks to something deep in your listening soul. Your clothes have begun to collect this moisture now, becoming pleasantly heavy with it. The fabric against your skin grows cooler and more present, creating an awareness of your physical self that is somehow both grounding and liberating. There's something deeply satisfying about this gradual saturation, this slow process of becoming one with the environment around you. The rain doesn't assault or overwhelm, it simply includes you, incorporating you into its gentle transformation of the landscape. As you stand or sit within this evolving scene, you notice how the approaching storm affects even the quality of sound itself. Your own breathing seems to resonate differently in the moisture-laden air. When you move, even slightly, the sounds are subtly dampened and enriched, as if the very atmosphere has become a gentle acoustic chamber that holds and cradles every noise. The effect is deeply soothing, creating a sense of intimacy with your surroundings that feels both protective and expansive. The flowers around you continue their graceful response to the increasing moisture. Some varieties seem to actually glow more brightly as the rain touches them, their colors becoming more saturated and vivid. Others take on a softer, more dreamlike quality, their edges blurring slightly in the moisture-laden air until they seem like watercolor paintings come to life. The interplay between the rainfall and the blooms creates an ever-changing gallery of natural art, each moment offering a new composition of color, light, and movement. This living gallery of rain-kissed blooms seems to beckon you deeper into its heart, where the largest and most sheltering flowers create natural alcoves and hideaways. You find yourself drawn toward a cluster of magnificent dinner plate dahlias, their broad petals forming generous canopies that offer refuge from the steadily increasing rainfall. The sound changes subtly as you move beneath their protective embrace. The direct patter of raindrops on your skin gives way to a softer, more muffled percussion as the water strikes the broad petals above and then cascades gently down in tiny rivulets around the edges of your floral shelter. Settling into this natural sanctuary, you discover how the flowers themselves have created a microenvironment unlike anywhere else in the field. The air here feels more concentrated, almost thick with the mingled fragrances of dozens of different blooms. The dahlia petals overhead filter the light into a soft, rosy glow that seems to emanate from the flowers themselves. Droplets that have gathered on the underside of the petals catch this filtered light and hang like tiny lanterns, each one a perfect sphere containing its own miniature world of refracted color and shadow. The ground beneath you in this sheltered space feels different too, softer and more cushioned, where layers of fallen petals have created a natural carpet. Some are fresh and still vibrant, having just released from their stems in the gentle buffeting of the rain, while others show the deeper, richer colors of age, their edges slightly curled, and their surfaces bearing the patina of time and weather. This petal-soft foundation seems to conform to your body as you settle more comfortably, creating a bed more luxurious than any human hands could craft. From this sheltered vantage point, you can observe the rain's effect on the surrounding flowers with a new perspective. The view through the gaps between petals frames the scene in organic windows, each opening offering a different composition of the rain-blessed field beyond. Through one gap, you might glimpse a row of sunflowers nodding in unison as the raindrops strike their heavy heads. Through another, delicate cosmos dance and sway, their thin stems bending gracefully with each gust of moisture-laden breeze. The effect is like looking through a series of living paintings, each frame containing its own story of botanical response to the nurturing rain. The shelter itself seems alive with small dramas and subtle movements. Water that has collected in the curved petals overhead occasionally releases itself in gentle drops that land on your arms or face with surprising warmth. These drops carry with them the essence of the flowers they've touched. Some taste faintly sweet, others carry a green, vegetal note, and still others seem to hold the very essence of summer sunshine, distilled into liquid form. The randomness of these drops creates a gentle, unpredictable massage, each one a small surprise that heightens your awareness of your own skin and the pleasant contrast between the warm rain and the slightly cooler air beneath the floral canopy. The stems and leaves that form the walls of your shelter create their own symphony of sounds as the rain interacts with their varied surfaces. The broad, fuzzy leaves of some plants produce a soft, drumming sound, while the waxy surfaces of others create sharper, more musical notes. Hollow stems act as tiny resonating chambers, adding their own subtle tones to the overall composition. You begin to realize that each plant species contributes its own voice to this botanical orchestra, and from your sheltered position, you can distinguish individual instruments within the greater harmony. As you relax more deeply into this natural sanctuary, you become aware of how the flowers around you continue their subtle movements, even within the shelter. The rain that drips down from the canopy above creates tiny streams that the stems and leaves follow, channeling the water toward the roots in an elegant display of natural engineering. Some flowers seem to actually adjust their positions slightly, turning their faces toward gaps in the canopy where more raindrops might reach them, while others angle themselves to direct the precious water more efficiently toward their base. The temperature within your floral shelter remains remarkably comfortable, as if the flowers themselves are regulating the microclimate. The evaporation from wet petals and leaves creates a gentle humidity that feels like a natural spa treatment, opening your pores and carrying the therapeutic scents of the garden directly into your lungs. Your breathing naturally deepens and slows as you inhale this perfumed air, each breath seeming to carry with it the vital essence of the growing, thriving plants that surround you. Time seems to move differently here among the sheltering flowers. The changing patterns of light as clouds shift overhead create a gentle rhythm of brightness and shadow that plays across your closed eyelids. Sometimes the shelter grows darker as a particularly heavy cloud passes over, and you can hear the rain intensify on the petals above. Then the light returns, often more golden and warm than before, and the rain settles back into its steady, nurturing rhythm. These natural cycles create a sense of being cradled within the very heartbeat of the summer storm itself. The sounds from beyond your shelter paint pictures in your mind of the greater field continuing its dance with the rain. You hear the whisper of wind through tall grasses, the gentle splash of raindrops hitting standing water in shallow natural pools, and the soft rustling of countless leaves and petals adjusting to each gust of moisture-laden air. Occasionally, a bee drone lazily through the shelter, apparently undeterred by the rain and drawn by the concentrated fragrances of your floral hideaway. The sound of their wings seems particularly resonant in the enclosed space, adding a note of industrious contentment to the peaceful atmosphere. Your body begins to synchronize with the rhythms of your sheltered environment. Your heartbeat seems to match the steady drip of water from petal to petal above you. Your breathing aligns with the gentle rise and fall of the flower stems as they sway in the breeze. Even your thoughts begin to move at the same unhurried pace as the raindrops that trace lazy paths down the curved surfaces of leaves and stems around you. This synchronization creates a profound sense of belonging, as if you've become part of the garden itself, rather than simply a visitor within it. The longer you remain in this natural sanctuary, the more details reveal themselves to your senses. You notice how different flowers release their fragrances at different intensities throughout the rain shower, some becoming more subtle and mysterious, others growing bolder and more assertive as the moisture activates compounds within their petals. You become aware of the different textures of the plant surfaces that brush against you occasionally, the velvety softness of some leaves, the smooth coolness of others, the interesting ridged patterns of certain stems, and the paper-thin delicacy of petals that sometimes drift down to rest gently on your skin. In this sheltered space, you can observe the intricate relationships between the different plants that share your natural alcove. Some seem to complement each other perfectly, their colors harmonizing in pleasing combinations that shift and change as the light filters through them differently. Others create interesting contrasts, bold architectural leaves next to delicate, lacy foliage, or bright primary colors adjacent to subtle pastels. The rain seems to enhance all these relationships, making the colors more vivid and the textures more pronounced, as if it's acting as a natural intensifier for all the beauty that surrounds you. The shelter feels completely secure and peaceful, a place where time holds no urgency, and the only schedule that matters is the natural rhythm of rain and sunshine, growth and rest. Here among the flowers, with their petals forming a living roof above you, and their stems creating walls that breathe and move with life, you found a space that exists outside the ordinary world, a place where the simple act of being present becomes a profound form of meditation, and where the gentle summer rain continues its ancient work of nurturing and renewal all around you. The cool droplets that have been your gentle companions throughout this journey begin to shift their rhythm as the sky above deepens toward twilight, and something magical starts to happen in the flower field around you. You notice it first as a subtle change in the air, a sweetening that wasn't there moments before, as if the approaching evening has awakened something that sleeps through the daylight hours. The rain continues its steady percussion against leaves and petals, but now it carries new fragrances on each breath of wind that moves through the field. As the light fades from gold to amber to the deep blue-gray of approaching night, certain flowers around you begin to respond to this ancient signal. You watch in quiet wonder as night-blooming jasmine, tucked between the taller day flowers, slowly begins to unfurl its small white star-shaped blooms. The process is so gradual you almost miss it, each petal edge lifting with deliberate slowness, revealing centers that seem to glow with their own pale luminescence against the darkening field. The jasmine releases its perfume into the rain-washed air, a scent so rich and intoxicating that you find yourself breathing more deeply, drawing it into your lungs where it seems to settle like velvet. The raindrops striking these newly opened jasmine flowers create the tiniest of sounds, softer even than the gentle percussion on the larger blooms around you. It's like listening to nature's own wind chimes, each drop creating a note so delicate you have to strain to hear it. Yet once you do, it becomes an intricate melody woven through the larger symphony of the rainfall, your feet, you discover 4 o'clocks that have been waiting patiently through the warm day for this very moment. Their trumpet-shaped blooms, which were tightly closed during the afternoon heat, now spiral open in shades of deep magenta and pale yellow, some striped with both colors and patterns that seem painted by an artist's careful hand. The rain catches in these trumpet shapes, creating tiny pools that overflow in miniature waterfalls from petal to petal. You lean closer and catch the sweet, almost vanilla-like fragrance they release, completely different from the jasmine, yet equally enchanting. The temperature has dropped just enough to make the warm rain feel like a perfect counterpoint to the cooling air. Each drop that touches your skin carries that pleasant contrast, the warmth of the water against the freshness of the evening breeze. You notice how your body seems to settle even more deeply into this comfort, as if the approaching night gives you permission to release any remaining awareness of time or obligation. The boundary between where you end and the garden begins grows even softer in this twilight hour. Above you, evening primroses that you hadn't even noticed during the day begin their spectacular opening. These flowers don't unfurl gradually like the jasmine. Instead, they perform their nightly magic with surprising drama. You watch as pale yellow buds that seemed unremarkable moments ago suddenly burst open, their 4-petaled faces spreading wide to catch the rain. The transformation happens quickly enough that you can actually see the movement, petals stretching and expanding like silent fireworks, blooming in slow motion throughout the field. The rain seems to intensify slightly as full darkness approaches, and you realize this evening shower is exactly what these night flowers have been waiting for. The combination of moisture and darkness triggers something primal in their blooming cycles. Moonflowers, their vines climbing invisible trellises in the darkness, begin to show the first signs of their spectacular opening. Even in the dim light, you can see their large white buds starting to swell, preparing for the dramatic unfurling that will happen once complete darkness falls. The sound of rain on this nocturnal garden creates an entirely different acoustic experience than it did in the bright afternoon. With the dayflowers now closed and drooping slightly in their evening rest, the rainfall finds new surfaces and angles. Water runs down the long stems of the evening primroses with a soft trickling that you can hear distinctly in the quieter night air. The jasmine, with its small, waxy petals, creates an almost musical pinging as drops strike and bounce. Each type of night bloom adds its own note to the rain's composition. You shift your position slightly, settling more comfortably among the flowering plants, and discover that even this small movement releases new fragrances into the air. The night blooming stalk, nearly invisible in the darkness but powerfully present through its perfume, surrounds you with a spicy, sweet scent that intensifies with each warm raindrop that strikes its modest white flowers. The combination of all these evening fragrances creates layers upon layers of olfactory experience, some sharp and clean, others deep and intoxicating, all woven together by the fresh, green smell of rain on earth. In this twilight world, your other senses seem heightened by the reduced visibility. The texture of rain on your skin becomes more noticeable, Not just the impact of individual drops, but the way they trail down your arms, the coolness they leave behind as they evaporate, the subtle difference between the rain that falls directly from the sky and the gentler moisture that drips from flower petals above. Your fingers, when you reach out to touch the night-blooming plants around you, discover new textures. The waxy smoothness of jasmine petals, the slightly fuzzy stems of the 4 o'clocks, the papery feel of evening primrose flowers that seem almost translucent in the darkness. The rhythm of the rain has settled into a steady, hypnotic pattern that seems to slow your heartbeat and deepen your breathing. It's the kind of rainfall that could continue for hours, not the dramatic intensity of a storm, but the patient, nurturing precipitation that plants treasure most. Each drop carries with it the promise of continued growth, of morning flowers that will bloom more vibrantly because of this nighttime nourishment. As you lie back among the night-blooming flowers, supported by the soft earth that has been drinking in this rainfall all day, you become aware of subtle sounds beneath the main percussion of rain on leaves. There's the gentle drip-drop of water running off petals, the soft whisper of wind through the opened night flowers, and occasionally the quiet movement of nocturnal pollinators beginning their evening work. A moth brushes past your cheek, drawn by the powerful fragrances of the night-blooming plants, its wings barely audible as it navigates between the raindrops toward its evening meal. The air around you feels alive with possibility in a way that's different from the warm afternoon hours. Night-blooming plants often carry more intense fragrances than their day-blooming cousins, having evolved to attract pollinators across greater distances in the darkness. This means that every breath you take is rich with perfume, not overwhelming, but present and beautiful, like being surrounded by nature's own aromatherapy garden. The rain seems to intensify these scents, releasing essential oils from leaves and petals and carrying them on every droplet and breeze. You notice how the rainfall creates different patterns of sound as it encounters the various heights and shapes of the night garden. The tall evening primroses create a gentle drumming as drops hit their broad leaves, while the low-growing 4 o'clocks produce a softer, more muffled sound. The climbing moonflowers, now beginning their dramatic opening sequence, channel water down their heart-shaped leaves in tiny rivulets that you can hear trickling toward the earth. The temperature of the rain feels perfect against your skin, warm enough to be comfortable, cool enough to be refreshing. As night deepens around the flower field, you realize you've witnessed something special. The daily transformation of a garden from its bright, colorful day personality to its mysterious, fragrant evening character. The rain has been your companion through both phases, adapting its own character to complement each stage of the garden's daily cycle. In this nighttime garden sanctuary, with warm rain continuing its gentle ministry and night flowers blooming in quiet splendor all around you, you feel held by something larger than yourself, by the ancient rhythms that govern when flowers open and close, when rain falls and stops, when day transitions to night. The steady percussion of raindrops on night-blooming petals creates a lullaby that seems composed specifically for this moment, and you allow yourself to sink deeper into the peaceful embrace of this rain-kissed evening garden, where every sense is gently engaged and every breath carries the sweet promise of flowers that bloom in darkness, where every sense is gently engaged and every breath carries the sweet promise of flowers that bloom in darkness. And as you breathe in that honeyed air, you feel yourself being drawn forward, not by any urgency, but by a gentle magnetic pull toward what seems to be the very center of this flowering sanctuary. Your bare feet find a narrow path that winds between raised beds overflowing with cascading blooms, and with each step, the fragrance grows richer, more complex, layering jasmine over rose, over something wild and indefinable that makes your heart flutter with recognition of beauty beyond naming. The path curves gently to the left, then right, following what feels like an ancient design carved into the earth itself. Rain continues its soft percussion on leaves and petals around you. But here, the sound takes on a different quality, more resonant, as if the very air is thickened with moisture and meaning. You notice that the flowers seem larger here, their colors deeper even in the gentle darkness. A climbing rose drapes itself across a weathered wooden arbor you hadn't noticed before. Its blooms heavy with collected rainwater that occasionally releases itself in tiny cascades that catch what little light filters through the clouded sky. As you pass beneath this natural archway, droplets from the rose cascade brush your shoulders like a blessing, and you realize you've entered something that feels distinctly different from the rest of the garden. The space opens before you in a rough circle, perhaps 20 feet across, surrounded by the tallest flower beds you've encountered. Here, sunflowers tower even above your head, their massive faces turned downward now in sleep, creating a natural amphitheater that seems to hold and amplify every sound. Each raindrop, each whisper of breeze through petals, each soft intake of your own breath. In the center of this circular sanctuary stands something unexpected and wonderful. An old stone fountain, its edges softened by decades of weather and trailing vines. But this isn't a grand, formal fountain with jets and sprays. Instead, it's a simple, shallow basin, carved from what looks like local granite, perhaps 3 feet across, filled now with the gentlest of the evening's rain. The water level rises slowly, peacefully, creating the softest possible sound as new drops join the growing pool. Around the fountain's base, moss has claimed territory in the most beautiful way, creating a living carpet that seems to glow with its own subtle luminescence in the dim light. You find yourself drawn to sit on the fountain's wide rim, and as you settle there, the stone feels surprisingly warm beneath you, as if it has been absorbing and holding the day's heat all this time, waiting to share it with you now when the evening air carries its first hints of coolness. The sensation is deeply comforting, this warmth rising up through your body while the gentle rain continues to kiss your skin from above. You're perfectly positioned now to observe this secret heart of the garden, this place that feels like it has been waiting centuries for someone to discover it and simply be present within its embrace. The flower beds that ring this central space are different from those you've wandered through before. Here the gardener, whoever tends this magical place, has planted with what seems like pure intuition for beauty and harmony. Tall delphiniums rise like blue and purple cathedral spires, their colors so deep they seem to absorb rather than reflect what light remains in the sky. At their feet, shorter companions spread in gentle chaos. Lavender that releases its scent more generously with each touch of rain. White peonies so full they bow their heads like drowsy children. And something with heart-shaped leaves that you can't identify, but whose flowers seem to shimmer with an almost ethereal quality. You lean forward slightly and dip your fingers into the fountain's growing pool of rainwater. The temperature surprises you. Not cold, but perfectly matched to the warmth of your skin, as if the stone has been warming the water just as it has been warming you. You cup a small amount in your palms and let it trickle back into the basin, watching the tiny ripples spread outward in perfect concentric circles that catch and scatter what little light filters down through the surrounding canopy of sunflowers and climbing vines. The sound of your movement in the water seems to awaken something in the garden around you. Not literally, but there's a shift in the quality of attention, as if every flower, every leaf, every drop of rain is suddenly more present, more aware. A night moth, attracted perhaps by the white gleam of the peonies, flutters past your shoulder and alights on the fountain's edge just a few feet away. Its wings are pale gray with intricate darker markings that look like delicate lacework, and it remains perfectly still except for the gentle pulsing of its wings as it breathes. You find yourself breathing in rhythm with this small visitor, your chest rising and falling in the same unhurried tempo. From somewhere in the darkness beyond the sunflowers comes a sound you hadn't noticed before. Or perhaps it has just begun. It's the gentlest possible splash, repeated at irregular intervals, and it takes you a moment to realize what you're hearing. There must be other fountains, other water features scattered throughout this garden, all collecting tonight's gentle rain and adding their own quiet voices to the symphony of water, finding water. The sound creates a sense of vast, peaceful space extending beyond what you can see. A reminder that this beautiful heart of the garden is just one chamber in a much larger sanctuary of growing things and flowing water. You close your eyes and let your other senses paint the scene around you. The rain has intensified just slightly, enough that you can feel individual drops landing on your upturned face, each one a tiny cool kiss that contrasts beautifully with the warmth still radiating from the stone beneath you. The scent profile here is incredibly complex. You can distinguish at least 6 different flower fragrances, plus the green smell of rain on leaves, the earthy richness of wet soil, and underneath it all, something that might be the smell of the stone itself, ancient and mineral and somehow deeply reassuring. When you open your eyes again, you notice details that had escaped you before. The climbing vine that drapes over parts of the surrounding sunflowers isn't just one plant, but several. Their stems intertwining in a natural partnership that has created curtains of heart-shaped leaves, punctuated by small white flowers that seem to generate their own soft luminescence. Rain clings to these leaves in perfect beads that occasionally merge and trace silver paths downward, creating temporary waterfalls in miniature that last only seconds before reforming elsewhere. Your bare feet have found a comfortable position in the soft moss that carpets the area around the fountain's base, and you can feel the tiny plants responding to your presence, not by retreating, but by somehow becoming more themselves, more green, more alive, more present. This moss, you realize, has probably been growing here for years, witnessing seasons of rain and sun, freeze and thaw, bloom and dormancy, accumulating wisdom in its simple cellular way about what it means to persist gently in one beautiful place. The moth on the fountain's edge has been joined by another, this one slightly smaller with wings that show hints of soft yellow when they catch the light just right. They seem content to share this space with you. These small night creatures who understand that beauty is often most profound in quiet moments, in the spaces between dramatic events, in the simple act of being present while water finds water and flowers release their fragrances into rain-sweetened air. You realize that you could sit here for hours, days even, and continue discovering new layers of detail, new relationships between the plants and water and stone, new qualities of light and shadow as the night deepens or eventually begins its long journey toward dawn. This heart of the garden feels like a place outside of time, where the usual urgency of human concerns simply doesn't apply, where the most important thing you can possibly do is exactly what you're doing now. Breathing slowly, feeling warmth and coolness simultaneously on your skin, letting your senses drink in beauty that asks nothing of you except your presence. The rain continues its gentle work, watering roots, filling fountains, washing the air clean of everything except the essential fragrances of night-blooming flowers and wet earth. And you continue yours, which is simply to witness, to receive, to allow this moment to be exactly as it is, perfect in its impermanence, sacred in its simplicity, infinitely precious in the way it offers itself to you without condition or expectation. The heart of the garden beats in rhythm with your own heart, and in this synchronization, you find a peace that seems to expand outward, like ripples in still water, touching everything and returning to you transformed, deeper, more complete than when it began its journey, deeper, more complete than when it began its journey. And as this sense of wholeness settles into your bones, you become aware of something new, a soft murmuring that seems to weave itself between the stems of the flowers around you, a gentle conversation between water and earth that draws your attention downward, inviting you to discover the hidden waterways that thread through this living landscape like veins of liquid music. Your bare feet, still warm from their communion with sun-heated soil, begin to sense the subtle shift in the ground beneath them. Here, where the flower stems cluster most densely, the earth feels different, cooler, slightly softer, as if it holds more moisture just beneath its surface. You take a slow step forward, then another, following this intuitive pull toward the sound of moving water, and gradually you begin to see them, narrow ribbons of clear stream water, winding their serpentine paths between the bases of towering sunflowers and the clustered roots of wildflower patches. these aren't the bold, rushing creeks of mountain valleys or the wide, lazy rivers of open plains. These are something far more intimate and secret. Slender waterways no wider than your hand, shallow enough that you could easily step across them, yet persistent in their gentle journey through the flower field. They appear and disappear like silver threads woven through green fabric, sometimes visible as bright lines, catching the diffused light that filters down through the flower canopy, sometimes hidden completely beneath overhanging leaves and drooping petals until you're almost stepping into them. You crouch down beside the nearest stream, feeling the rain continue its soft percussion against your shoulders and back, and marvel at the delicate ecosystem that exists in this miniature water world. The stream bed is lined with the finest sand you've ever seen, grains so small they feel almost like silk beneath your fingertips when you trail your hand in the surprisingly warm water. Mixed with the sand are tiny pebbles, each one rounded smooth by the patient work of flowing water, in colors that span from deep charcoal to cream, with occasional flecks of rose quartz and what might be jasper catching the muted light. The water itself moves with unhurried purpose, creating the gentlest possible sound. Not quite a gurgle, not quite a whisper, but something between the two that seems designed specifically to calm whatever part of the human nervous system most needs soothing. You find yourself naturally synchronizing your breathing to the rhythm of this liquid percussion, each inhalation drawing in the scent of wet earth and flower roots, each exhalation releasing any remaining tension from your shoulders and jaw. Along the banks of these miniature waterways, a different sort of vegetation flourishes. Here grow the plants that love having their feet in moisture while their faces reach toward light, delicate ferns unfurling in spirals of green geometry, clusters of forget-me-nots so small and perfect they look like they were painted by an artist working with the finest possible brush, and tiny wild violets that have somehow found their way to this perfect intersection of water and warmth. The contrast between these low-growing, shade-loving plants and the tall, sun-seeking flowers that tower above creates layers of green in every possible shade and texture. You decide to follow one of these streams to see where it leads, walking slowly alongside its meandering path as it curves around the thick stalks of cosmos and winds between patches of bachelor's buttons whose blue petals occasionally drop into the water and float like tiny boats on a miniature voyage. The rain continues to bless everything with its gentle attention, and you notice how it feeds these streams, not dramatically, but in the most subtle way. Each droplet that lands in the water, creating rings that spread outward and disappear, each one adding to the stream's volume by the tiniest possible measure. As you walk, you begin to understand that these waterways form an intricate network throughout the entire flower field. Sometimes, two streams converge in a spot where the earth dips just slightly, creating a pool no larger than a dinner plate, where water striders perform their miraculous balancing acts on the surface tension. Sometimes a single stream splits around the massive root system of an old sunflower, creating an island of earth where a single daisy has established itself like a lighthouse guiding water traffic around its shores. The sound changes as you move deeper into this aquatic maze between the flower stems. In some places, where the stream flows over a collection of small stones, the water creates tiny waterfalls that sound like distant wind chimes made of the lightest possible materials. In other spots, where the stream has carved a slightly deeper channel, the water moves almost silently, its presence known only by the way it catches occasional glimmers of light, or by the different quality of coolness that rises from its surface. You pause beside one of the larger pools, where several streams seem to have decided to rest for a moment before continuing their journey, and you notice movement beneath the clear surface. At first, you think it might be your imagination, a trick of light and shadow, but as you watch more carefully, you realize you're observing the most delicate possible aquatic life. Tiny translucent creatures no bigger than rice grains pulse through the water with movements so graceful they seem choreographed. Water beetles trace figure eights across the surface, their legs creating the smallest possible ripples, while something that might be a dragonfly nymph rests motionless on the sandy bottom, so perfectly camouflaged you only notice it when it makes the tiniest adjustment to its position. The temperature difference between the air and the water creates its own microclimate here between the flower stems. The air feels softer, more humid, carrying scents that are different from those in the drier parts of the field. Here you smell the green vitality of plants that drink deeply, the mineral sweetness of clean water moving over stone, and underneath it all, the rich complexity of earth that has been kept moist and fertile by this gentle irrigation system that nature has designed with such perfect precision. You find yourself wondering how long these streams have been flowing through this place, how many seasons of flowers they've nourished, how many rainstorms like this one they've welcomed with their ready channels and patient stones. There's something infinitely reassuring about their persistence, their quiet commitment to their essential work of bringing water to thirsty roots and creating habitat for the smallest members of this flowering community. Settling yourself beside one of the streams, you let your legs extend so that your bare toes just touch the water's edge, feeling the coolness seep up through your feet while the warm rain continues to bathe your head and shoulders. From this low vantage point, the flower field transforms once again. The stems around you become pillars of a vast natural cathedral, their bases anchored in this network of life-giving waterways, their crowns lost somewhere high above in a canopy of petals and leaves that filters the rain into exactly the right intensity for everything that grows below. The stream beside you carries its own unique cargo as it flows. Flower petals that have completed their time on their stems and now travel like colorful letters in a message written by the wind and delivered by water. Tiny seeds beginning their own adventures toward new places where they might take root, and occasionally a fallen leaf that serves as a raft for creatures too small to see clearly, but whose presence you can sense in the way they cause the leaf to rock gently as it spins in a slow eddy near the bank. you realize that what you're witnessing here is one of nature's most elegant solutions to the challenges of distribution and nourishment. These streams don't just provide water to the plants. They're highways for genetic diversity, carrying the reproductive hopes of flowers to new territories, mixing the soil nutrients from upstream with those from down, creating connections between parts of the field that might otherwise exist in isolation. Every drop that flows past your toes is part of a vast circulation system that keeps this entire ecosystem healthy and resilient. The sound of the water mingles with the sound of rain in a way that creates something new. Not quite music, but not quite random noise either. It's as if the landscape itself has learned to sing, using voices of liquid and percussion to create a composition that changes moment by moment, but never loses its essential harmony. Listening to this natural symphony while feeling the gentle movement of air between the flower stems, you understand that you found one of those places where all of Earth's elements come together in perfect collaboration. As you sit in this intimate space between the stems, surrounded by the quiet industry of flowing water and growing things, the rain continues to write its gentle story on every surface, and you feel yourself becoming part of this story, not as an observer from outside, but as a natural element in this scene of perpetual renewal, where streams carry their patient gifts between roots and stems, where every drop finds its purpose, and where the simple act of water moving over stone becomes a meditation on the beauty of persistence, the grace of surrender, and the profound peace that comes from witnessing the earth's most tender and essential conversations. These conversations between water and stone, between root and earth, where every element speaks in the unhurried language of seasons and cycles, and where you find yourself settling deeper into this rhythm of natural communion, when the air itself begins to shift around you with a subtle electricity that raises the fine hairs on your arms and brings with it the promise of something magnificent approaching from the distant horizon. The first whisper of thunder arrives not as sound, but as sensation, a gentle trembling that travels through the ground beneath you, through the stems of the flowers that surround you, through the very molecules of moisture-laden air that brush against your skin. It's so faint at first that you might mistake it for your own heartbeat, for the pulse of blood in your ears. But then it comes again, deeper this time, rolling across the landscape like a great cat, stretching after sleep, lazy and powerful and utterly unhurried in its approach. You lift your face toward the sky, feeling the subtle shift in atmospheric pressure against your cheeks, and notice how the light has changed, not dimmed, but transformed into something richer, more golden, as if honey has been poured through the air itself. The clouds that were distant companions earlier have drawn closer, their edges soft and billowing, carrying within their depths the deep blue-gray promise of rain. And you can see the gentle lightning flickering inside them like thoughts moving through a dreaming mind. The flower field responds to this approaching presence with its own quiet anticipation. The petals seem to turn slightly upward, as if listening, and the leaves rustle with a different quality now, not the random flutter of breeze-blown vegetation, but something more purposeful, more aware. The very air smells different, charged with ozone and the green scent of growing things preparing to receive nourishment. And you breathe it in deeply, feeling how it seems to awaken something primal and peaceful in your chest. Another rumble of thunder rolls across the distance, and this time you hear it clearly. Not the sharp crack of nearby lightning, but the long, low conversation that thunder makes when it has space to stretch and breathe, when it can take its time crossing valleys and hills, gathering resonance from every surface it touches. It sounds almost like singing, like the earth itself, humming a lullaby, and you find yourself smiling at the unexpected tenderness in something so vast and powerful. The raindrops begin as whispers against your skin, single drops so light and warm that they feel more like blessings than weather. One lands on the back of your hand, and you watch as it catches the golden light, becoming a tiny lens that magnifies the delicate lines of your skin before it spreads and soaks in, leaving behind only the faintest cooling sensation and the knowledge that you have been touched by something that traveled from cloud to earth just to find you here among the flowers. More drops follow, each one arriving with its own gentle announcement. A soft tap against a broad leaf here, a quiet plash against a puddle there, the barely audible whisper of water meeting petals that welcome it like old friends. The rhythm is irregular at first, sporadic, like the opening notes of a song that hasn't quite found its melody yet, but gradually it begins to organize itself into something more coherent, more intentional, as if the sky is learning how to speak this particular rain into existence. You close your eyes and listen to the symphony building around you, the percussion of drops against different surfaces, creating their own complex harmonies. The hollow sound of rain striking the broad leaves creates one tone, while the drops that find the softer petals make barely any sound at all, just the slightest shifting of plant matter, welcoming moisture. The rain that falls on the earth creates yet another voice, a gentle pattering that speaks of soil awakening and roots preparing to drink deeply. The thunder joins this orchestra with its own measured contributions, rolling across the sky in long, peaceful waves that seem to arrive precisely when the moment calls for them. There's no urgency in this storm, no violence or haste, just the steady, patient unfolding of weather as it was meant to be, rain falling at exactly the pace the earth needs to receive it, thunder providing the bass notes that ground all the higher, lighter sounds in something solid and reassuring. The warmth of the rain surprises you with its gentleness. Each drop carries within it the heat of the summer sky, so when it touches your arms, your face, your hands, it feels like being caressed by liquid sunlight. There's no shock of cold, no sudden adjustment to temperature, just the sensation of warmth meeting warmth, of the sky offering its stored solar energy back to the earth in the most tender way imaginable. And you find yourself thinking how perfectly matched everything is, how precisely calibrated this moment feels to provide exactly what both you and the landscape need. Your clothes begin to absorb the moisture, but rather than feeling uncomfortable or heavy, the damp fabric seems to settle against your skin like a second, softer skin, that moves with you more intimately than dry cloth ever could. The cotton or linen breathes differently now, allowing air to circulate in new patterns, creating tiny pockets of cooling and warming that shift as you shift, making you more aware of your body, not as something separate from the rain, but as another surface for the water to discover and explore. The flowers around you seem to unfold further as the rain touches them, their petals relaxing into positions that capture and channel the water toward their centers. You feel yourself settling into this composition, becoming another voice in the choir. Your breathing and heartbeat adding their own subtle percussion to the larger symphony of summer rain falling exactly as it should, when it should, where it should, creating around you and within you a sense of profound rightness, of being precisely where you belong in this moment. When the sky offers its gifts to the earth and you find yourself blessed to witness this ancient and ever-new conversation between the elements. And as you settle deeper into this awareness of belonging, the rain begins to establish its own unhurried cadence, each drop arriving not randomly, but as part of a larger pattern that reveals itself slowly, like a secret code written in water and time. And you find yourself naturally beginning to listen, not just to individual raindrops, but to the spaces between them, the brief moments of anticipation before the next gentle percussion against leaf or petal, the way the rhythm builds and softens, like breathing made audible across the entire field. The flowers around you seem to be learning this rhythm too, their petals moving in subtle response to each gentle impact, creating a kind of botanical dance that happens in slow motion, so gradual and graceful that you might have missed it if you weren't lying here so still, so present, watching the way a cosmos flower tilts slightly under the weight of accumulated moisture, then springs back with surprising resilience, sending tiny droplets arcing through the air to land on neighboring blooms, starting their own small cascade of movement and response. You begin to notice how the rain's tempo shifts almost imperceptibly, sometimes quickening for a few moments as if the clouds above have found a particularly generous mood, the pattering against the earth becoming more frequent, more insistent, though still impossibly gentle, and then slowing again to a more meditative pace, as though the sky itself is breathing, inhaling silence and exhaling moisture in long, measured cycles that seem to match something deep within your own body's natural rhythms. The ground beneath you has begun to respond to this steady nourishment, and you can sense, rather than see, the way the soil is drinking deeply, gratefully, the dry earth that had been waiting through the warm morning, now receiving exactly what it needed. And there's something profoundly satisfying about witnessing this fundamental exchange, this most basic conversation between the sky and earth that has been happening for millions of years, long before there were any observers to appreciate its quiet perfection. Each raindrop carries with it not just moisture, but a kind of musical possibility. And as you listen more carefully, you begin to distinguish between the different sounds each surface creates when touched by water. The soft whisper of rain on broad, sunflower leaves sounds entirely different from the delicate ping of drops hitting the papery seed pods of the poppies, which creates yet another sound from the gentle splash as water meets the smooth surface of a rose petal still warm from the morning sun. Your breathing has begun to synchronize with this natural percussion without any conscious effort on your part, simply because the rhythm is so organic, so fundamentally right, that your body recognizes it as something to harmonize with rather than observe, and you find your chest rising and falling in time with the subtle accelerations and decelerations of the rainfall, as if you and the weather have found a common language that requires no translation. The air around you has taken on a different quality now, thick with moisture and the concentrated essence of growing things, and each breath feels almost nourishing, carrying with it not just oxygen, but the molecular signature of wet earth and rain-washed flowers, a combination so rich and complex that it seems to feed something in you deeper than your lungs, some part of your being that had been thirsting for exactly this combination of elements, this particular alchemy of water and earth and living green above you, though you cannot see them through the gentle veil of rain. You know the clouds are continuing their slow dance across the sky. And there's something comforting about knowing that this rainfall extends far beyond just this field, that somewhere in the distance, other flowers are receiving the same tender attention. Other patches of earth are drinking just as gratefully, creating a vast network of nourishment and renewal that stretches to the horizon and beyond. The rhythm of the rain begins to work on your sense of time itself, each drop marking a moment that feels both fleeting and eternal. And you realize that you've lost track of whether you've been lying here for minutes or hours, because the rainfall has created its own temporal dimension where normal measurements of duration seem irrelevant, replaced by something more organic, more attuned to the natural cycles of giving and receiving that govern all living things. Your skin has become completely accustomed to the gentle moisture now, no longer registering each individual drop as a separate sensation, but experiencing the rainfall as a continuous, silk-like presence that moves across your body like the softest possible touch. And there's something deeply peaceful about this adaptation, the way your physical self has learned to accept and even welcome this liquid contact, as if you've been slowly transforming into something that belongs entirely in this rain-touched world. The flowers closest to your position have begun to release their fragrances more intensely as the rain draws out their essential oils, and waves of scent drift past you in an ever-changing procession. Now the honey-sweet perfume of the stock flowers, now the clean, green smell of wet stems and leaves, now the more complex, spicy aroma of the marigolds as they respond to the moisture, each fragrant note distinct, yet blending seamlessly with the others to create an olfactory symphony that shifts and evolves with each subtle change in the breeze. You find yourself becoming aware of the rain's rhythm on a cellular level, as if each drop that touches your skin sends tiny vibrations throughout your entire body. And these gentle pulses seem to encourage a kind of internal settling, a releasing of tensions and holdings that you hadn't even realized were there, as though the rainfall is offering not just external refreshment, but a kind of internal cleansing, washing away the accumulated stress and static of daily life with the same gentle persistence it uses to nourish the flowers. The sound of the rain has become so woven into your consciousness that you begin to lose the distinction between hearing it and being it, between the rhythm that surrounds you and the rhythm that flows through your veins. And there's something profoundly peaceful about this dissolution of boundaries, this sense that you've become part of the larger system of circulation and renewal that connects the clouds to the earth, to the flowers, to your own quietly beating heart. Around you, the field continues to transform under the rain's influence, colors deepening and intensifying, the reds of the poppies becoming more vivid, the yellows of the sunflowers more golden, the purples of the lavender more rich and saturated, as if the rainfall is not just providing moisture, but somehow enhancing the essential nature of everything it touches, bringing out hidden depths and possibilities that only emerge in these moments of perfect atmospheric conditions. Each breath you take seems to carry more than just air now, infused as it is with microscopic particles of water and the concentrated life force of countless flowering plants. And you can feel this enriched atmosphere working its way through your respiratory system, oxygenating not just your blood, but your entire sense of being alive, present, connected to the intricate web of life that surrounds you in every direction, extending from the smallest soil microorganisms up through the tallest flowers and into the generous clouds overhead. The rain continues its patient work, each drop contributing to the vast, slow project of sustaining life. And you realize that by lying here so quietly, so receptively, you've become part of this ancient process, another element in the field's complex ecosystem. Your presence somehow adding to, rather than disturbing, the delicate balance of forces that maintains this small paradise. Your breathing and heartbeat becoming additional instruments in the endless composition that plays whenever water meets earth in the presence of growing things. This composition of water, earth, and growing life continues its ancient performance around you. And as you rest within its rhythm, you begin to notice something new stirring at the edges of your awareness. The faintest suggestion of change in the air itself, so subtle at first that you might mistake it for imagination, but gradually becoming unmistakable as the night begins its slow, almost imperceptible transformation towards something else entirely. The quality of darkness around you shifts by degrees so small they seem to exist at the very threshold of perception, yet somehow your body registers each microscopic alteration in the atmosphere, the way your skin can sense the approach of weather long before your eyes confirm what's coming. There's a coolness gathering low among the flower stems, pooling in the slight depressions where rainwater has collected throughout the night. And this coolness carries with it the first whisper of what's beginning to happen. A process so gradual and gentle that it feels less like an event than like a secret the field is slowly deciding to share with you. The air near the ground grows softer somehow, taking on a quality that makes each breath feel more substantial, more nourishing, as if the very molecules around you are becoming enriched with something vital and renewing. You sense rather than see the initial signs of mist beginning to form, born from the marriage of warm earth and cooling air, rising from countless tiny pools of rainwater that dot the field like scattered mirrors reflecting nothing but darkness. The mist emerges not as a single phenomenon, but as thousands of individual wisps, each one a miniature ghost of vapor that lifts from its particular patch of wet soil or rain-kissed leaf, beginning a slow dance upward through the flower stems with movements so fluid they seem choreographed by the night breeze itself. The scent in the air transforms as this ethereal fog begins its ascent, carrying with it layers of fragrance that were hidden before. The deep mineral richness of earth that has been thoroughly soaked and is now releasing its essence into the atmosphere, mingle with the concentrated perfume of flowers whose petals have been opened and softened by hours of gentle rain. Each breath draws in this complex bouquet, and you find yourself breathing more slowly, more deliberately, wanting to savor each inhalation as it fills your lungs with the distilled essence of the awakening field. The mist thickens gradually around you, not with the sudden drama of a weather event, but with the patient persistence of a natural process that has been repeated countless mornings across countless seasons. It rises through the spaces between flower stems like slow smoke, curling around the sturdy stalks of sunflowers and threading itself through clusters of smaller blossoms with an almost intelligent grace, as if it knows exactly where it belongs and how to move through this three-dimensional garden without disturbing a single petal or leaf. Your skin begins to register the presence of this rising moisture, not as wetness exactly, but as a subtle shift in texture, a barely perceptible dampness that settles over your arms and face like the softest possible blanket. The sensation is cooling without being cold, refreshing in a way that seems to reach beyond your skin into some deeper part of yourself that has been waiting for exactly this kind of gentle renewal. You realize that you're being gradually enveloped by a cloud that's forming around and above you, transforming the field into something even more magical than it was in the simple darkness of full night. The sounds of the field change as the mist thickens, becoming somehow both muffled and amplified in the peculiar way that fog affects acoustics. The gentle dripping of residual rainwater from leaf to leaf takes on a more musical quality, each drop seeming to ring with unusual clarity in the moisture-laden air. The whisper of breeze through the flowers becomes softer, more intimate, as if the mist is serving as a natural sound dampener that filters out any harshness, while allowing the most beautiful frequencies to pass through, enhanced and purified. You can hear your own breathing more clearly now, not because you're breathing louder, but because the mist-filled air seems to create a gentle, acoustic cocoon around you, a space where the sound of your inhalation and exhalation becomes part of the field's symphony rather than separate from it. Each breath you take draws an air that tastes faintly of flowers and rain and rich earth, air that feels almost substantial enough to nourish you in ways beyond the simple exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. The world around you continues to disappear and reappear in the thickening mist, creating a sense of existing in multiple realities simultaneously. Sometimes you're lying in a clearly defined flower field where you can sense the boundaries and shapes of individual plants, and other times you're floating in a soft, gray-white void where only the immediately surrounding blossoms remain visible, their colors muted, but somehow more precious in the ethereal light that the mist creates by diffusing whatever starlight manages to filter through the vapor. This shifting visibility creates a dreamlike quality that seems perfectly suited to your state of deep relaxation, where the boundary between waking and sleeping, between yourself and the field, becomes increasingly meaningless. You're aware of being completely present in this moment, while simultaneously feeling as if you're drifting through a landscape of pure sensation, where the normal rules of physical space have been temporarily suspended in favor of something more fluid and forgiving. The mist continues its patient rise, and you can feel it moving past you like the gentlest possible current in an ocean of air, carrying with it the collected essence of everything it touches: the sweetness from flower petals, the mineral richness from wet soil, the green vitality from countless leaves and stems. You've become a fixed point in this slow-motion river of vapor, and you can sense how your presence affects its flow, how the mist moves around your body with the same natural accommodation it shows to the flower stems and leaves, incorporating you seamlessly into its pattern of movement. The temperature continues to drop by imperceptible degrees, not uncomfortably, but just enough to make the warmth of your own body more noticeable, creating a pleasant contrast between your internal heat and the cooling air around you. The mist seems to respond to this warmth, gathering more thickly near your skin, as if drawn to the gentle radiation of your body temperature, creating swirling patterns in the vapor that you can sense even if you can't quite see them in the darkness. Time moves differently in this mist-wrapped world, each moment expanding to contain what feels like hours of sensation and awareness. You lose track of how long you've been lying here, how long the mist has been rising, how long you've been breathing this flower-scented air that grows richer and more complex with each passing moment. The usual markers of temporal progression, the need to move, to check the time, to think about what comes next, have been dissolved by the same forces that created this ethereal fog, leaving you suspended in a present moment that feels both infinitely long and perfectly complete. The sounds of the field at night continue around you, but are filtered now through layers of mist that seem to sort and organize each noise, allowing only the most soothing elements to reach your ears with full clarity. You can still hear the occasional drip of water from flower to flower, but now each drop seems to carry its own small echo, bouncing softly off the moisture-laden air before fading into the general whisper of the night. There are tiny sounds you haven't noticed before. The almost inaudible rustle of flower petals adjusting to their burden of accumulated mist. the microscopic patter of water molecules condensing on leaves throughout the field. Your body settles even deeper into its position among the flowers, and you can feel how the rising mist is gradually equalizing the temperature and humidity around you, creating a micro-environment that feels perfectly calibrated to support the most profound relaxation. The air you're breathing has taken on an almost therapeutic quality, as if the combination of flower essences, earth minerals, and pure water vapor has created a natural aromatherapy treatment designed specifically for deep restoration and peaceful sleep. The mist around you pulses gently with subtle movements you can barely perceive, rising and swirling in patterns that seem to follow rhythms older than human memory. The breath of the earth itself made visible in water vapor, the slow circulation of moisture between soil and sky that has been continuing unchanged since the first flowers bloomed in fields like this one. You realize that you're witnessing and participating in something ancient and essential, a nightly ritual of renewal that transforms ordinary landscapes into temporary sanctuaries of healing fog and flower-scented air. As the mist continues to thicken around you, you feel yourself becoming lighter somehow, as if the weight of ordinary concerns and the usual tension of daily life are being gently lifted away by the rising vapor. Your thoughts, already slowed by the profound peace of this flower field, become even more spacious and unhurried, drifting like the mist itself with no particular destination, content simply to move slowly through your consciousness without demanding attention or analysis. The field has become a universe unto itself, bounded not by its actual edges, but by the gentle limits of visibility in the thickening fog, creating an intimate world where only you and the immediately surrounding flowers seem to exist, connected by the soft circulation of mist-laden air and the shared rhythm of a night that feels as if it could continue forever, offering endless opportunities for rest and renewal in this perfect sanctuary of vapor and bloom. This sanctuary of mist and petals gradually begins its transformation as the deepest part of night slowly retreats, though the change arrives so subtly that at first it exists more as a feeling than anything visible. The fog continues to embrace everything in its gentle hold, but within its dense layers, something stirs. Not movement exactly, but a shift in quality, as if the very molecules of moisture suspended in the air are beginning to remember the existence of light. You remain settled among the flowers, your body having found its perfect resting place against the earth, feeling how your warmth has created a small microclimate where the ground beneath you holds just a hint more heat than the surrounding soil. The first whisper of dawn doesn't announce itself with light, but with the softest change in the air's texture. The mist that is wrapped around you through the night hours begins to feel less like a blanket and more like a living thing, stirring with the faintest circulation as somewhere beyond the fog's embrace, the earth starts its gentle turn toward morning. Your breathing has synchronized completely with this rhythm of subtle change, each breath drawing in air that tastes of flower petals and moisture, of grass stems heavy with collected droplets, of that particular coolness that belongs only to the hours when night and day meet in perfect balance. Around you, the flowers seem to sense this approaching transition in their own quiet way. The stems you've been listening to all night continue their gentle movements, but now there's something expectant in their soft rustling, as if they too are preparing for dawn's arrival. Water continues to gather and fall in its endless cycle, droplet forming on petal edge, growing heavy, releasing to find another surface. Each tiny journey creating the softest percussion against leaves and earth. But the rhythm of this water music begins to slow, becoming more deliberate, more spaced, as the temperature difference that creates condensation starts its gradual shift. You can feel the fog's presence all around you, like a cocoon of vapor. But within its depths, something is changing. The absolute uniformity of the mist begins to develop the subtlest variations in density. Here, near a cluster of taller flowers, the fog seems to pool more thickly. There, where the ground dips slightly, it flows with barely perceptible movement. These variations create the faintest suggestion of space and dimension within what has been an endless gray embrace, though still so gentle that you might think you're imagining the changes if you focused too intently on any single spot. Your body has found its deepest state of relaxation, muscles completely released into the earth's support. Yet somehow you remain aware of these minute transformations happening in the world around you. It's as if your awareness has expanded to include not just your own peaceful state, but the gentle awakening of the entire field. You sense the flower's patient presence, feel the grass beneath you, holding its collection of moisture. Notice how the air itself seems to be preparing for something beautiful without any urgency or demand for attention. The scent in the air begins its own subtle evolution. The rich, deep fragrances of night-blooming flowers start to mingle with something fresher, cleaner. The smell of air that has been washed thoroughly by fog and is now ready to carry new messages. You breathe this changing atmosphere slowly, tasting how it holds layers of experience. From the rain that began this journey, the earth that absorbed it, the flowers that have bloomed in its wake, and now this fog that has wrapped everything in gentle transformation throughout the dark hours. Sound continues to be minimal, but within that quietness, new elements emerge. The soft dripping of condensed moisture has slowed to irregular intervals, each drop creating a tiny note in the vast silence. Somewhere in the fog's embrace, a single flower stem releases a cluster of accumulated water with the softest whisper against leaves below, the nearly inaudible settling of petals adjusting to their water load. These sounds don't break the silence, but rather define it, giving texture to the peace that surrounds you. Time moves differently here in this space between night and day, wrapped in fog that makes the entire world feel intimate and infinite simultaneously. You've lost all sense of minutes or hours, existing instead in a flow of gentle sensations and subtle changes that unfold at nature's own unhurried pace. Your heartbeat provides the only steady rhythm, and even that seems to have slowed to match the peaceful tempo of dawn's approach through layers of mist. The fog begins to show its first hint of response to the distant presence of light. Not actual brightness, the sun remains hidden beyond thick layers of vapor. but a suggestion that somewhere above this gray embrace, the sky might be remembering color. The uniformly dark mist develops the faintest variation in tone, so subtle that it exists at the very edge of perception. You notice this not by looking, but by sensing. The way your closed eyelids might detect the difference between deep night and early morning, even through the fog's screening presence. Around you, the flowers continue their patient existence, stems moving occasionally with the soft air currents that flow through the mist like slow rivers of vapor. The petals near your resting place hold their collected moisture in perfect suspension, each bloom wearing its crown of droplets like jewelry designed by the night itself. You can sense their quiet beauty, even without seeing clearly, feeling how they contribute their subtle fragrances to the air you breathe, their gentle presence to the space you occupy. The transformation continues its unhurried progress, and gradually you begin to sense something new in the fog's behavior. The dense layers that have embraced everything begin to show the slightest tendency toward movement. Not dispersing exactly, but stirring with currents so gentle they barely qualify as motion. This creates the subtlest shifts in density, moments where the fog seems to thin just slightly, then thicken again, like slow breathing made visible in vapor form. Your own breathing has become so natural, so perfectly attuned to this environment, that each inhalation draws in the essence of everything around you. Flower-scented moisture, earth-warmed air, the clean smell of water in all its forms. Each exhalation releases your breath into this shared atmosphere, making you part of the field's own respiratory rhythm, connected to its cycle of moisture and air, growth and rest. The ground beneath you continues to provide perfect support, its surface soft with the rain it has received, and the condensation it continues to collect from the fog above. You can feel how the earth holds this water like a gentle reserve, not saturated, but perfectly moistened, creating the ideal conditions for the flowers that surround you to continue their blooming. Your body has become so still, so completely relaxed into this support, that you feel integrated with the landscape itself. As dawn approaches through layers of mist, the changes become slightly more noticeable while remaining perfectly gentle. The fog shows variations in thickness that create subtle suggestions of depth and space. The air carries whispers of movement as gentle currents flow through the vapor. The water music continues its quiet percussion, but with longer intervals between notes, as if the night's generous condensation is beginning to find its balance with the approaching day. You rest in this transformation without any need to observe it actively or analyze its progress. Instead, you simply exist within it, feeling how your own peaceful state harmonizes with the field's gradual awakening. The flowers around you seem to embody the same quality of patient presence, neither sleeping nor fully alert, but existing in that perfect state between, where change can happen naturally and without disturbance. The scents continue their evolution, with the deep night fragrances gradually making space for something lighter, more ethereal. The air tastes of possibilities now, of a day that will eventually emerge from this gentle fog but feels no urgency to rush the process. You breathe this changing atmosphere like a meditation, each breath connecting you more deeply to the rhythm of natural transformation happening all around. Time becomes even more fluid as the fog begins to reveal its response to dawn's distant approach. The changes remain subtle, gentle, perfectly paced for rest and observation without effort. The mist shows variations in density that create the softest suggestions of movement and space. Here, slightly thinner. There, pooling more deeply. These variations don't break the fog's embrace, but rather give it texture, dimension, life. The flowers near you adjust to these subtle changes with their own quiet responses. A petal releases its burden of collected moisture with the softest sound. A stem sways slightly in the gentle air current. A cluster of blooms seems to shift almost imperceptibly, as if sensing the gradual approach of light even through the fog's protective screen. These movements are so natural, so perfectly integrated with the overall peace of the scene, that they enhance the tranquility rather than disturbing it. Your awareness expands and contracts gently, sometimes focused on the immediate sensation of earth beneath you and air around you, sometimes embracing the entire field in its foggy transformation. Both states feel equally natural, equally restful, allowing you to experience this dawn in whatever way feels most peaceful for your own rhythm of rest and attention. The fog begins its gentlest response to the light that still remains hidden beyond its layers, not dispersing, not retreating, but simply acknowledging the sun's presence somewhere in the world beyond this intimate space of mist and flowers. The vapor shows the subtlest shifts in character, becoming less like solid gray and more like flowing veils of moisture that move with their own soft rhythm. Through these gentle changes in the fog, you catch the first whisper of actual light. Not brightness, but the suggestion that brightness exists. A softening in the gray that surrounds you. A hint that the mist itself might be capable of carrying illumination within its embrace. This light doesn't pierce or penetrate, but rather suffuses, becoming part of the fog rather than fighting against it. The flowers respond to this whisper of light with their own subtle shifts. Colors that have been hidden in the gray begin to show the faintest suggestions of themselves. Not clear, not bright, but present. A hint of yellow here, the suggestion of blue there. Red touched with gray, but still recognizably red. These colors appear and fade like gentle thoughts, never demanding attention, but offering themselves quietly to your resting awareness. Your breathing continues its perfect rhythm, drawing in air that tastes of flowers and moisture, and the peculiar freshness that belongs to fog beginning its dance with light. Each breath connects you to this transformation while maintaining your deep state of rest. You feel yourself witnessing something beautiful without any effort, simply by being present in this space where night gradually makes room for day. The sounds of the field continue their quiet evolution. Water still drips occasionally from petal to leaf, but with longer silences between. The soft rustling of stems creates gentle punctuation in the vast quietness. Somewhere in the fog, a flower releases moisture with the softest whisper, these sounds don't break the silence, but rather define it, creating a soundscape of perfect peace. The light within the fog continues to grow, so gradually that each moment feels complete in itself, rather than part of a progression toward something else. The gray mist takes on the subtlest warmth of tone, not golden exactly, but no longer the cool gray of deep night. This change happens slowly enough that your eyes adjust naturally, never startled by sudden brightness, always comfortable within the gentle illumination that builds like a soft breath within the vapor itself. Around you, the flowers begin to show more of their true colors through the lightning mist. Still soft, still muted, but recognizable now as the blooms that surrounded you in yesterday's sunshine and last evening's gentle rain. Their presence feels like greeting old friends, familiar and comforting. Their quiet beauty enhanced rather than diminished by the fog that continues to embrace them. The air itself seems to lighten, not just with illumination, but with something harder to define, a sense of renewal, of possibilities gently awakening. You breathe this changing atmosphere slowly, feeling how it carries the memory of rain, the present gift of fog, and the promise of whatever this new day might offer, all held in perfect balance within your lungs, within your peaceful awareness. Your body remains completely relaxed into the earth's support, but now you sense how the ground itself is participating in this gentle dawn. The moisture it holds seems to respond to the growing light, not evaporating, but rather existing in perfect harmony between liquid and vapor, between night's gifts and day's gentle approach. The fog continues its slow dance with light, creating moments of slightly clearer vision, followed by gentle returns to gray embrace. Through these natural rhythms, you catch glimpses of the fields awakening, flowers adjusting to the changing conditions, grass holding its jeweled collection of droplets, the soft contours of earth that have supported your rest throughout these peaceful hours. Colors become more present now, though still soft, still wrapped in mist. The flowers show their petals in gentle pastels painted with gray. The grass reveals its green, touched with silver moisture. The earth displays its rich brown, softened with fog's gray embrace. These colors don't demand attention, but offer themselves quietly, like whispered conversations in the growing light. Time continues its fluid quality, each moment complete, each breath perfect, each subtle change in light and fog and flower creating its own small completion within the larger rhythm of dawn's approach. You rest within this rhythm, without any need to track its progress or anticipate its next movement, simply present within whatever the current moment offers. The light grows, stronger now, though still filtered through layers of mist that keep everything soft, gentle, perfectly paced for rest and quiet observation. The fog doesn't retreat, but rather transforms, becoming a carrier of illumination rather than a barrier to it. This creates a unique kind of dawn, where light arrives as a gradual suffusion rather than a sudden appearance, where brightness builds like gentle music rather than announcing itself with dramatic revelation. Your breathing carries the sense of this transformed world, flowers revealing their fragrances more fully in the growing light, earth releasing its sweet, moisture-warmed smell, air that tastes clean and renewed and full of gentle possibilities. Each breath deepens your connection to this place, this moment, this perfect balance between rest and awareness. The sounds continue their subtle evolution, fewer droplets falling now, but each one creating its own small note of completion, soft movements of stems and petals adjusting to the light, the barely audible circulation of air through fog and flowers. These sounds create a soundscape of deep peace, defining silence rather than breaking it. Through the mist, the flowers show more of their individual beauty now, each bloom distinct yet harmonious with its neighbors. Colors gentle but true, shapes soft but recognizable. They stand in their quiet rows and clusters like patient witnesses to this gentle dawn, their presence both comforting and inspiring, familiar yet touched with the magic that fog and light create together. The fog itself becomes part of the beauty now, no longer hiding the world, but rather transforming it into something softer, more dreamlike, more peaceful than clear daylight could offer. Through its gentle screen, everything appears touched with wonder, blessed with tranquility, invited into a slower, more restful way of existing. Your awareness expands to embrace this entire transformed landscape. Flowers and fog, light and moisture, earth and air, all existing in perfect harmony. You feel yourself part of this harmony, your own peaceful state contributing to and participating in the field's gentle awakening. Rest and awareness merge into something beyond both, a state of simply being present within beauty. The light continues its gentle increase, creating moments when the fog seems to glow from within, as if it has captured illumination in its very substance and is releasing it slowly, generously, without any harshness or demand for sudden adjustment. This quality of light feels healing, restorative, perfectly designed for eyes that have rested in darkness and are ready to welcome brightness gradually. Around you, the flowers stand in their quiet splendor, colors now visible but still soft, still wrapped in mist's gentle embrace. Their fragrance fills the air more completely as the warming light encourages their natural perfumes to rise and blend. You breathe this flower-scented air slowly, feeling how it carries not just scent, but the essence of growth, renewal, natural beauty, expressing itself without effort or pretense. The ground beneath you participates in this gentle awakening, its moisture finding perfect balance between gift and release, between holding and offering. You feel supported not just physically, but somehow spiritually by this earth that has absorbed rain, collected dew, provided foundation for flowers, and now offers itself as the perfect resting place for your own peaceful presence in this transformed world. Time moves even more slowly now, each moment expanding to hold infinite peace, infinite rest, infinite gentle beauty. The changes in light and fog continue their unhurried progression, but your awareness of them becomes softer, more dreamlike, as if you're witnessing this dawn from a state between waking and sleeping, between observation and pure being. The flowers blur into impressions of color and fragrance. The fog becomes texture more than substance. the light transforms into feeling rather than illumination. Your breathing slows to match this dreamy pace, each breath deeper, softer, more connected to the rhythm of earth and air, flower and mist. Everything begins to merge into pure sensation, pure peace, pure rest. The boundaries between yourself and the field soften like fog itself. You become part of the flower's quiet presence, part of the earth's gentle support, part of the air's soft circulation, part of the light's gradual awakening. Colors fade back into gentleness. Sounds become whispers of silence. Thoughts dissolve into the rhythm of breathing. Fog and light blend into pure tranquility. The field holds you in its peaceful embrace. Flowers standing their quiet watch, earth providing endless support, air flowing softly through the growing light. Rest deepens into something beyond rest. Awareness softens into dreams. The gentle dawn wraps everything in perfect, endless peace. Breathing, softness, light, flowers, rest, floating in fog and flowers, wrapped in gentle light, breathing peace, rest, and so the story gently fades like stars at dawn. Sleep well, dear listener.